The evening sky over the shattered plain burned with the dull glow of distant fires, smoke twisting like dark banners against the fading crimson light. Lieutenant Aaron Duval crouched low behind a fractured wall of alloy, his medkit slung across his back, the acrid scent of scorched earth clinging to his uniform. The minefield stretched before him, a deadly maze of half-buried charges that hummed faintly with alien energy. Every cautious step sent a shiver of anticipation up his spine, for he had already seen what a single misstep could do. The crack of plasma fire echoed far away, but closer there was only the eerie hiss of wind through wreckage. Aaron's pulse thudded in his ears as he scanned the rubble for any sign of survivors. His squad had retreated hours ago after the ambush, leaving him the only medic stubborn enough to venture back. He had sworn an oath that no wounded, human or otherwise, would be left behind if there was still a heartbeat. Tonight that promise weighed heavier than his gear. A faint cry, half-choked, half-alien, reached him from beyond a bent support beam. He froze, unsure if it was a trick of the wind or the final plea of some unfortunate soul. Drawing a breath, Aaron edged forward. The sound came again, sharp and urgent, carrying both pain and defiance. It wasn't human. It wasn't a voice he recognized, but its desperation pierced the wall of caution he had built through years of war. There she was, sprawled on the blackened ground like a fallen comet. Her skin glimmered a deep scarlet, streaked with dust and streaks of dark blood that looked almost metallic in the wan light. Long silver hair spilled across the rubble like molten moonlight. One leg ended abruptly above the knee in a ragged wound, smoke still curling from the torn flesh where the mine had found her. Aaron's stomach clenched at the sight, but his training overtook the instinct to recoil. The alien girl's eyes fluttered open, pupils narrowing like a predator's as she caught sight of him. Fear flashed there first, then suspicion. Then the cold acceptance of someone who had stopped expecting mercy. Her hand twitched toward a small crystalline dagger by her side. Aaron raised his palms slowly, the universal gesture of truce, and knelt just beyond her reach. "I'm a medic," he said, his voice low and steady. "If you want to live, you have to let me help." She hissed something in her own language, a cascade of sharp syllables that sounded like glass striking stone. The dagger slipped from her fingers as she sagged back, the fight bleeding out of her with the warmth of her life. Aaron closed the distance and snapped open his kit. The wound was catastrophic, a gaping ruin of tissue and charred muscle. Standard field dressings would only delay the inevitable. He bit back a curse. She needed more than a tourniquet. A tremor shook the ground, a reminder that enemy patrols could sweep the area any minute. Aaron worked quickly, his hands moving with the speed of long practice. He sealed the wound with a coagulant spray that hissed like frostbite against the scorched flesh. The girl tensed, her jaw tightening as if to swallow a scream. Her alien physiology reacted unpredictably, skin flickering between shades of crimson and violet. But the bleeding slowed. For the moment, she was alive. Her breathing steadied, and she fixed him with those luminous, slitted eyes. Something in her gaze softened, though distrust lingered like a shadow. Aaron tapped the comm unit on his wrist, sending a burst of encrypted coordinates. He doubted anyone from his own side would answer soon. The battlefield was a graveyard tonight. He had to get her to the forward triage station alone and quickly. But when he tried to lift her, she jerked away and muttered a word that sounded almost like no. Aaron frowned. He gestured to her destroyed leg, hoping to communicate the urgency. She replied with a phrase in broken standard. "Metal, leg, you make?" The words were halting, but the meaning landed like a charge. He blinked at her in surprise. The human field labs had developed synthetic limbs capable of near-organic integration, technology so new that few soldiers even knew it existed. Aaron had trained on it in theory only. The prototypes were meant for elite operatives, not wounded aliens on the edge of enemy territory, yet somehow she knew of it. "I can try," he whispered, unsure whether he was making a promise or tempting fate. A distant boom rolled across the plain, scattering pebbles around them. The girl flinched and clutched his sleeve with surprising strength. Aaron tightened his grip on the medkit and scanned the horizon. The night would soon swallow them, and with it the chance of survival. "We have to move," he said. "Can you hold on?" She gave a faint nod, her silver hair catching the dying light like a signal flame. He lifted her carefully, her light frame surprisingly strong despite the wound. Each step toward the abandoned transport bay felt like wading through a field of ghosts. Aaron kept his senses sharp for the telltale hum of hidden mines, but the path ahead remained eerily silent. The girl rested her head against his shoulder, her breath warm despite the cool night. It felt almost like trust. At the entrance to the transport bay, the smell of old machinery and ozone filled the air. Aaron laid her on a workbench and activated a portable lamp. Its cold glow revealed more clearly the extent of the damage. The mine had not merely torn flesh, it had seared bone, leaving a jagged edge that would challenge even the best surgeons. Aaron swallowed hard. This would require everything he knew and more. The alien watched him, her gaze both fierce and pleading. She touched his arm and said a single word, perhaps her name or perhaps a prayer. He wished he could ask, but there was no time. He unpacked the sealed canister in his kit. A prototype synthetic limb suspended in pale blue fluid, the product of years of clandestine human research. It was her only chance. He recalled the countless simulations he had practiced in sterile labs back on Earth. None had prepared him for the urgency of real blood, real fear, or the weight of an alien life in his hands. He sterilized his instruments, his movements automatic despite the hammering of his heart. The girl's eyes never left his face, as though measuring not his skill but his soul. Outside, a gust of wind rattled the rusted metal of the bay. Aaron connected the limb's neural interface to his portable console, watching the lights flicker to life. The synthetic tissue glowed faintly, almost alive. He glanced at the alien girl, who stared at the glowing limb with a mixture of awe and terror. For a moment he wondered if she understood the magnitude of what was about to happen. Her breathing quickened as he positioned the limb near the wound. He spoke softly, more to calm himself than her. "This will hurt, but it will give you back what you've lost." She closed her eyes, a single tear, silver like mercury, slipping down her cheek. Aaron steadied his hands and began. The first contact between synthetic and living tissue sent a ripple of energy through the bay. The girl gasped, her back arching as the limb's adaptive fibers latched onto nerve endings. Aaron worked quickly, guiding the connection while monitoring vital signs. Sweat beaded his forehead as the interface aligned, the limb beginning to respond to her faint neural signals. A sudden shout echoed from outside, the metallic clank of approaching boots. "Enemy patrols!" Aaron's heart leapt into his throat, but his hands did not falter. He applied the final seal, locking the limb into place with a hiss of biogel. The alien girl's eyes flew open, blazing with a light he had never seen in any human. The synthetic leg twitched, then flexed, responding as though it had always been hers. Aaron exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Outside, the footsteps drew closer, the war reminding them both that survival was far from guaranteed. Yet in that fragile moment, amid ruin and fear, a human hand had crafted a bridge between species, and perhaps a new kind of hope. The rusted doorframe shuddered as the echo of boots grew louder in the night. Aaron pressed a finger to his lips, urging the alien girl to silence. Her newly attached synthetic leg twitched again, the faint blue glow of its inner circuits threatening to give them away. He reached over and dimmed the portable lamp until only a soft halo of light remained. The bay sank into a tense half-dark, the air thick with the scent of ozone and fear. The girl shifted, testing the weight of her new limb. A sharp hiss of pain escaped her throat, but she clenched her jaw, forcing the sound back. Aaron watched the way she balanced her body, the way the synthetic leg seemed to respond to her will despite the rushed integration. He'd never seen a patient adapt so quickly. It was as if her nervous system was wired for adaptation far beyond human limits. A sudden metallic scrape outside froze them both. The patrol was close, too close. Aaron grabbed his med kit and whispered, "We move now." The girl met his eyes, and for the first time there was no suspicion, only determination. She swung her legs over the bench, wincing as the new limb took her weight. The faint whir of servos accompanied her first hesitant step. He opened a side hatch that led to a maintenance tunnel beneath the transport bay. Cold air rushed up, smelling of damp earth and old machine oil. Aaron gestured her forward, and she lowered herself into the tunnel with surprising agility. Her silver hair caught the moonlight for a heartbeat before darkness swallowed her. Aaron followed, sealing the hatch just as a pair of shadowed figures passed above. The tunnel was narrow and uneven, carved from soil and reinforced with corroded steel ribs. The alien girl steadied herself with one hand against the wall, her other brushing the ceiling for balance. Aaron led with a small wrist light, its beam cutting a pale line through the dark. Their footsteps were muffled, but every distant echo seemed to chase them like a predator. After several minutes, they emerged into an underground chamber littered with abandoned mining equipment. Aaron paused to listen. Only the steady drip of condensation broke the silence. The girl stepped beside him and whispered in halting standard. "They hunt. You." Her voice was soft but carried a strange melody, as if her native tongue still colored every syllable. Aaron shook his head. "Tonight everyone is hunted." He glanced at the glowing seam where the synthetic limb met her crimson skin. "How does it feel?" She hesitated, flexing the limb. "Alive," she said finally, her pupils narrowing to sharp slits. A faint smile tugged at the corner of her lips, fleeting but unmistakable. Her name came next, spoken like a secret. Caleth. Aaron repeated it softly, careful not to stumble over the alien syllables. She nodded, a flicker of pride in her eyes. "Aaron," he offered in return, touching his chest. Caleth tilted her head, then mirrored the gesture. In the silence that followed, the war outside seemed momentarily distant. A low rumble vibrated through the chamber, shaking loose a shower of dust. Aaron tensed. Caleth's eyes flared with a faint inner glow as she turned toward the sound. "Underground drones," she said, her accent wrapping around the words like wind through chimes. They find heat." Aaron cursed under his breath and extinguished the wrist light. The chamber plunged into black. Caleth reached for his hand, her grip firm and startlingly warm. The synthetic leg hummed faintly as she shifted her weight, the sound barely audible over the growing rumble. Aaron guided her toward a narrow side passage he had noticed earlier. The path wound like a serpent, the walls slick with condensation that chilled his fingers. Behind them, a faint mechanical whine rose, a scout drone, its sensors sweeping for life. Aaron's heart pounded as they pressed themselves against the damp wall. The glow from Caleth's leg dimmed instinctively, its adaptive camouflage responding to danger. The drone glided past the junction like a silent predator, its single red eye scanning the darkness. Aaron held his breath until it vanished. When the last echo faded, Caleth released his hand slowly. "Your creation," she whispered, glancing at the leg. "It hides, as we hide." Aaron exhaled a shaky laugh. "Good to know my engineering works under pressure." Her silver hair shimmered faintly in the darkness, and for a moment, he forgot the war beyond these walls. They continued through the tunnel until a faint blue glow appeared ahead. The passage opened into a cavernous chamber where ancient alien machinery lay half buried in stone. Massive columns of unknown metal rose like petrified trees, pulsing with a slow heartbeat of light. Caleth gasped, a sound of both reverence and sorrow. "Home," she whispered. Aaron stared at her. "This is your people's?" She nodded, her eyes reflecting the dim glow. "Long before. War, this place. Sacred." She knelt, touching the cold metal of an ancient console. Symbols flickered to life beneath her fingers, casting ghostly patterns across her scarlet skin. Aaron felt as though he stood at the threshold of another civilization's memory. Caleth's voice grew steadier as she spoke to the console in her native tongue. Lights flared and a faint hum resonated through the chamber. Aaron watched as holographic images bloomed in the air. Stars, planets, routes of travel. He recognized the sector maps from military briefings, but these were far older, etched with a knowledge lost to human records. She turned to him, her silver hair glinting in the holographic starlight. We're not enemies," she said softly. "Before the war, we shared sky." Aaron's chest tightened. The war had taught him to see her kind only as adversaries, yet here she stood, living proof of a shared history buried beneath centuries of conflict. The distant sound of drones returned, faint but unmistakable. Caleth's eyes hardened. "They follow," she said. Aaron tightened the straps on his medkit and glanced at her leg. It flexed effortlessly now, as if it had always been part of her. "Then we keep moving," he said. Together. Caleth stepped beside him, the synthetic limb glowing faintly with each stride. In that silent cavern of forgotten stars, a fragile alliance was forming. One forged not in treaties or politics, but in the shared instinct to survive. Outside, the war raged on, but in the depths of the earth, a human and an alien walked side by side toward a future neither of their worlds had dared to imagine. The climb out of the ancient chamber began with a narrow shaft that spiraled upward like the throat of some colossal beast. Aaron tested the ladder of fused metal rungs, each chilled by centuries of damp air. Caleth followed, her new limb moving with an ease that no longer betrayed hesitation. The soft whir of servos blended with the steady drip of water, a quiet rhythm that steadied his nerves even as distant tremors of war rolled through the rock. Halfway up, a low boom shook the shaft and showered them with dust. Aaron tightened his grip, muscles tensing as he braced against the wall. Kalith glanced down, her silver hair swinging in the dim light, and said something in her own tongue, perhaps a warning or a prayer. He could not tell, but the urgency in her eyes spoke volumes. They climbed faster, hearts beating in unison. The shaft ended in a hatch crusted with mineral deposits. Aaron pressed his ear against the cold metal, hearing only the muffled whisper of wind. With a slow, careful push, the hatch groaned open to reveal a twilight plateau, bathed in the ghostly light of a shattered moon. The landscape stretched like a frozen ocean of black stone, jagged ridges catching the faint glow of distant fires. Kalith emerged beside him, her crimson skin shimmering against the night. The air was bitter and dry, carrying the acrid scent of scorched metal. Aaron scanned the horizon, noting the faint silhouette of enemy patrol towers far to the east. He gestured toward a cluster of ruined transport pylons to the north. "Shelter," he whispered. Kalith nodded, her newly forged leg adjusting with each step, the faint hum of its hidden circuitry almost lost in the night wind. They moved quickly, keeping low among the stone outcroppings. Kalith's movements had grown confident, her balance almost preternatural. Aaron watched the way she placed each foot, the synthetic limb responding as if it were truly her own flesh. For a fleeting moment he marveled at the seamless blend of human engineering and alien resilience. It was a quiet triumph, one he dared not speak aloud. As they approached the pylons, the ground beneath them trembled with a sudden vibration. Aaron froze, motioning for silence. Kalith's eyes narrowed, her pupils contracting into razor slits as she scanned the darkness. From the shadow of a crumpled landing strut, a trio of red sensor lights flared to life. Drones, sleek, insect-like machines, rose into the air with a metallic whine, their weapons pods glinting beneath the fractured moon. Aaron dropped to one knee, drawing his sidearm with a slow, deliberate motion. Kalith crouched beside him, her hand brushing the ground. A faint ripple of energy shimmered across the stones, as if the earth itself were answering her call. He caught his breath as the drone's sensors swept toward them, a crimson glow passing just meters away. Kalith whispered a single word, and the ripple deepened into a sudden pulse of force. The nearest drone jolted midair, its lights flickering before it crashed to the ground in a burst of sparks. The other two swiveled, searching for the source. Aaron fired a controlled burst, striking one squarely and sending it tumbling into the rocks. The third darted upward, its alarm screeching into the night. Kalith raised her hand again, but the drone accelerated beyond her reach. Aaron leapt forward, sliding behind a pylon for cover. He took aim and fired, the shot clipping the drone's tail but not disabling it. The alarm wailed louder, a metallic cry that would draw more enemies within minutes. Kalith joined him, her face tense, the synthetic limb vibrating faintly as though amplifying her own resolve. "We run," she said, her standard sharp and clear. Aaron nodded. They sprinted through the jagged pylons, the drone's fading cry chasing them across the plateau. The ground sloped downward toward a field of collapsed hangars, their skeletal frames silhouetted against the distant firelight. Aaron's lungs burned, but Kalith kept pace effortlessly, the whir of her new leg blending with the rhythm of her heartbeat. In her eyes flickered something fierce and unyielding. They reached the shadow of the largest hangar just as a distant roar of engines rolled across the plain. Aaron pulled Kalith into the shelter of the rusted frame, both of them crouching low. Above, searchlights cut across the plateau, sweeping for any trace of movement. Kalith rested her hand against the wall, her breathing steady despite the chase. "They bring hunters," she whispered. Aaron checked the charge on his sidearm, half depleted. He met her gaze and saw no fear, only the quiet certainty of a warrior who had lost much and yet refused to break. "Then we stay ahead of them," he said. "One step." Kalith tilted her head, the faintest trace of a smile forming. "One step," she echoed. The searchlights passed and the roar of engines faded to a distant murmur. They slipped deeper into the hangar, where ancient cargo crates lay scattered like forgotten monuments. Aaron activated his wrist light, revealing a tangle of old fuel lines and shattered control panels. In the far corner, a dormant shuttle rested on its landing struts, its hull scarred but intact. Hope flickered in his chest. Kalith approached the shuttle with reverent caution. She traced her fingers across the hull, and alien symbols pulsed faintly beneath her touch. "This craft, ours," she said, her voice a mix of pride and sorrow. Aaron stepped beside her, studying the design. Sleek, elegant, nothing like the blocky transports of his own people. "Can it fly?" he asked. Kalith closed her eyes, listening to the silent hum of the vessel. If heart still beats. They worked quickly, clearing debris from the access ramp. Aaron's hands moved with practiced efficiency, guided by the urgency of survival. Kalith entered the shuttle and began speaking softly in her native tongue. Panels flickered to life, bathing the interior in a soft blue glow. Aaron felt a shiver of awe as he stepped inside. It was like walking into the memory of a civilization that refused to die. From the cockpit, a low vibration hummed through the floor. Kalith's eyes opened, their inner light reflecting the shuttle's awakening systems. "Heartbeats," she said simply. Aaron allowed himself a breath of relief. "Then we have a chance," he replied. But even as the words left his mouth, the distant howl of engines returned, closer now, and multiplied. Kalith gripped the controls, her silver hair catching the glow of the instruments. "Hunters near," she warned. Aaron sealed the hatch and strapped himself into the co-pilot's seat. Outside, the night erupted with the crimson sweep of searchlights and the metallic shriek of approaching drones. The shuttle's engines purred to life, a sound like the stirring of some ancient giant. Aaron met Kalith's gaze. "Let's see if this old heart can outrun them." She gave a single fierce nod and pushed the throttle forward. The shuttle shuddered, then lifted from the hangar floor in a burst of blue light. Dust swirled in their wake as the ground fell away, the broken plateau shrinking beneath them. Behind, the hunters gave chase, their engines screaming through the night. Through the cockpit glass, the fractured moon loomed large and pale, a silent witness to their flight. Kalith's new leg braced firmly against the deck, her movements seamless as she guided the shuttle skyward. Aaron's pulse matched the rising pitch of the engines. In the dark expanse above, freedom waited, if they could survive the chase that had only just begun. The shuttle's ascent was rough, every vibration rattling through the frame like bones in a storm. Aaron gripped the armrests of his seat as Kalith leaned into the controls, her focus absolute. Behind them, the first volley of plasma fire streaked past, searing the night with molten trails. The hunters had locked on. Aaron cursed under his breath and checked the meager weapon system flickering on his console. A single turret remained operational, its charge levels far from reassuring. Kalith shouted something in her language, her voice sharp and commanding. The shuttle banked hard, the sudden tilt forcing Aaron against his restraints. A plasma bolt grazed their hull, sizzling across the metal and leaving a charred scar. The shuttle shuddered but held. "They won't stop," Aaron muttered. Kalith's eyes narrowed, their inner glow fierce. "Then, we don't stop." Aaron powered up the turret, guiding its aim through the targeting reticle. A hunter drone darted into view, its angular wings catching the fractured moonlight. He fired. The turret belched a streak of blue energy that struck the drone dead on, exploding it into a blossom of fire. The brief victory sent adrenaline surging through his veins, but two more drones closed in, their weapons primed. Kalith wove the shuttle through the incoming fire, every move precise and desperate. The synthetic limb braced her against the violent swerves, its servos whirring as if designed for flight itself. Aaron stole a glance at her, marveling at the calm intensity that radiated from her every motion. She wasn't just flying. She was fighting with every fiber of her being, a warrior reborn from the edge of death. For the first time, he wondered if fate had placed him here not merely to save her, but to witness what came after. Another bolt rocked the shuttle, sparks showering across the cockpit. Warning alarm screamed, and the console spat out a cascade of failing systems. Aaron worked feverishly to reroute power, hands flying across controls he barely understood. Kalith barked directions in halting standard, her commands guiding him like lifelines through chaos. The bond between them deepened in the fire of necessity, unspoken yet undeniable. The horizon opened before them, and with it, a glimpse of salvation. The storm barrier. A swirling wall of ionized clouds stretched across the sky, glowing with arcs of lightning that illuminated the darkness. Aaron knew it was madness to enter. It would fry most engines instantly. But the hunters hesitated, unwilling to follow into such chaos. Kalith's lips curled into a sharp, defiant smile. "Storm hides us," she said. Aaron nodded grimly. "Or kills us." They dove into the storm. Lightning clawed at the hull, static electricity crawling across the cockpit glass. The shuttle groaned under the pressure, every alarm blaring at once. Aaron gritted his teeth, holding the systems together with patchwork reroutes while Kalith fought to keep the craft steady. The synthetic leg anchored her, preventing the violent turbulence from throwing her aside. She was unshakable, like iron forged in fire. For endless minutes they rode the fury of the storm, blind to anything beyond the arcs of blinding light. The hunters fell away, their signals vanishing from the scanners. The storm's wrath became both shield and gauntlet, testing their will to survive. Aaron thought the hull might tear apart at any second, but gradually, the turbulence lessened. A break in the storm opened, spilling them into a vast silence of stars. The sudden calm was staggering. Before them stretched an expanse of uncharted space, the stars unbroken by the scars of war. Kalith exhaled slowly, her grip on the controls loosening for the first time. Aaron leaned back, his chest heaving, sweat running down his temples. Against all odds, they had survived. The shuttle hummed steadily now, its ancient heart still beating. Kalith turned to him, her eyes luminous in the starlight. She placed a hand on his arm, her touch both alien and achingly human. "Together," she said softly, the word carrying a weight that transcended language. Aaron met her gaze and nodded. Together. In that simple exchange, something unspoken solidified, an alliance born not of treaties or commands, but of blood, courage, and trust. She guided the shuttle toward a cluster of faint signals flickering on the edge of their scanners. "Refuge," she whispered. Aaron studied the readings, recognizing them as neither human nor hostile. A settlement hidden far from the front lines, a place where perhaps war had not yet reached. For the first time in years, he felt the fragile stirrings of hope. As the shuttle drifted closer, Kalith flexed her synthetic leg, testing its movement with a mix of wonder and resolve. The limb responded flawlessly, a creation of human hands now inseparably bound to her alien form. She caught Aaron watching and tilted her head, silver hair cascading over her shoulder. "Your gift," she said, "now, part of me." Aaron's throat tightened. "Not just a gift," he replied quietly. "A bridge." She considered this, then smiled, small, fierce, and utterly genuine. In her expression he saw not just gratitude, but the spark of something larger, a defiance of the divisions their species had carved. Together they had crossed a line that no war could erase. The shuttle descended toward the hidden settlement, lights blooming in the dark like scattered stars come to Earth. Aaron felt the weight of the war still looming beyond the horizon, but here in this fragile sanctuary another story was beginning. A story of healing, of survival, and perhaps of peace. Kalith's hand tightened on his, a silent vow sealed in the quiet of space. The storm was behind them, but the greater storm of war raged on. Yet in that stolen moment, carried on the pulse of ancient engines and the bond between two unlikely allies, Aaron believed that change was possible. One human hand, one alien heart bound by a synthetic limb and a promise.